What's up, everybody? Welcome in to Southeastern 14 Bets and Ball Games with Edwards and Greeson NCAA Tournament edition. Before we get to Jay, let's tell you about our friends from Bet Online, your top spot for all your live betting action and contests. College basketball, NBA, UFC, and NHL are in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. All the hoops betting action, along with every sport available at your fingertips with a desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's all caps BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Jay, what's up, my man?
Not much. Glorious week. Major League Baseball started today with the Soul Series. We know what Thursday and Friday hold. Two things. One of my favorite tidbit trivias about March Madness. Do you know Thursday and Friday are the most scheduled days for vasectomies nationally? So those guys can then put their rocks on ice and just sit around and watch college basketball. The second one, and I'm curious about this because you do this for a living. Do you find yourself less interested in the bracket because of gambling access wall to wall? I mean, gambling is now legal and permissible in 38 of our 50 states. So everybody's got it within, or the majority of the country's got it within the touch of their fingers through their smartphone. I'm curious if that's going to decrease the brackets in the long haul.
No, that's a valid question. I do a bracket. And actually, I'm doing two this year. One with my guys in Atlanta that we've been doing it for like 20 years. And then I've got a group, a local group, which is a lot of chirping with each other that we do. So, but I do two bracket contests. But I don't know. The one in Atlanta is $100 an entry, and we normally get about 100 people. So it's pretty big money if you finish in the top three. So I'm very interested in that. But certainly game by game, I don't know. It depends. If you're in the mix, the bracket's very important. And I was in the mix last year, and actually finished second and got some loot. But if my bracket's not looking good, it'll go to just specific games. And apologies to our audience. Dealing with a little sinus stuff. Apologies if I don't sound great. Oh, and by the way, CenturyLink sucks. This is my 7th day in a row without the internet. Not ideal timing for that.
Well, go ahead and tell us a first world problem without telling us you're in a first world community.
Right. There's other problems in the world. All right. Let's start with, let's pimp slap the committee for just a second as it relates to SEC teams. And the whole bracket in general. But we touched on it in the green room. UConn's the number one overall seed. Why are they in the toughest region? Auburn just won the SEC tournament. Why are they in UConn? Auburn, UConn
as a 4. I mean,
unbelievable.
If you're the number one overall seed, you should have the worst 2, and Iowa State is clearly not the worst 2 because you and I, gamblers across the country, realize how good Iowa State and Nebraska have been for the last 3 months. But Iowa State, I mean, they just won the conference championship in the toughest league in the country, and then Auburn's a 4 after winning the second toughest league in the country. And Illinois just won the Big Ten. And they're all in UConn's bracket. If as an Auburn graduate, I'm ticked that Auburn not only got a 4, but got the worst 4. But Auburn doesn't have as big a beef as UConn does. Because if UConn is truly the
Right.
number 1 overall seed, then they should have the worst 2, and that's probably
Arizona.
probably Arizona. They should have then the next best 3, which should be Kentucky, and then the worst 4, which is probably Duke. But it shouldn't be Auburn. And you look up, and I mean, heck, they may have to go through FAU, which was at one time ranked in the top 15 in the country in a second round game. Auburn to get out of the Sweet 16, which Auburn is across every metric, every ranking you look at, Auburn is top 7 in the country by every ranking, but they're 15 or 16 according to the NCAA committee. And I'll tell you this stat. In the 17 of the last 20 NCAA champions have finished top 11 in offensive and defensive efficiency in the season. You know how many teams are in this bracket who meet that qualification? 2, UConn and Auburn. So go get you some of that, committee. Go get you some of that. So the metrics point that the committee completely botched every decision they made throughout the seeding process. And the eye test told us last night, Virginia was an abomination. That game was unwatchable.
I had Colorado State, and I still turned it off.
Right.
49 minutes of real time without a bucket. Now, that included halftime. But, what?
They had 14 points at halftime. They're down 20 in the second half, and they're still running the shot clock to less than 5 seconds. I mean, hello, make an adjustment, Tony Bennett. I mean, I know you got a whole bunch of slow dudes who are apparently getting NIL money off the dribble per bounce, but dear Lord, man. I mean, just try to increase the tempo. You're down 20, and your season's on the line.
I mean, if he didn't win that natty, I think he'd be getting fired today.
Yeah, I do too.
But he didn't.
But you know what? And that's a whole other kettle of fish. And I know we got things to get to, and we got brackets to break down. The ACC is about to implode.
And hey,
Clemson filing lawsuits. FSU's already unhappy. You don't think the SEC and the Big Ten are already circling around going, hey, how interested are you in coming and joining our league and bringing your football eyeballs with us? So, I mean, wow.
And look, when we were growing up, the ACC was the best conference in America, but they really haven't. Outside of Duke and Carolina and little pockets of success, well, obviously the natty for Virginia and, but NC State, a Sweet 16 here and there. But the ACC's pretty much sucked for 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I mean, they pilfered Louisville and took the Pitino years, and that was fine and great. But now Louisville may be the worst Power 5 basketball program in America. And you look up, I don't trust any ACC team in this tournament.
Oh, no. No. Although, with that said, North Carolina, and here we are back to the seeding. I think North Carolina's got a great path to the Final Four, although I don't necessarily trust them. But, yeah. And just real quick on Florida. Florida should not have been a 7 seed, but I am fine with it because, one, we played 4 games in 4 days. I wanted to undoubtedly be playing Friday, Sunday, and then we get to play a Boise State, Colorado team that, is going to be playing late night tonight. We're recording on Wednesday. When they're done with their media obligations, by the time they get to the airport and fly to Indy, they're not getting to their hotel room until past 3 a.m., probably got media obligations late tomorrow morning. And then if Florida advances, Tyler Kolek, he's missed 6 games in a row. He's their best player. Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be on the court? Is he 80%, 90%? So I'm actually okay with Florida. All right, but yeah, we've got a lot to get to. And the first game of the tournament, is an SEC team, and it's Mississippi State going up against Sparty. And Bet Online currently has it at, well, where are we? Here we go. Michigan State is -1 at Bet Online. 130 and 1/2 is your total. This is in Charlotte. So maybe minor, very minor location advantage to Mississippi State, but not much of a location advantage. Before I ask you, or actually, I'll go ahead. What are your thoughts on this one? And by the way, whoo, what an ass kicking Mississippi State put on Tennessee.
Absolutely. I don't know if that was the conference indifference of Tennessee knowing they could do no worse than a 2 seed. They had already mission accomplished with the SEC regular season championship. I don't know if that, or if I don't know if this is what has been a pretty consistent showing of Rick Barnes' teams underwhelming when we get to March, whether he's worn them down, whether they are tired of the message, whether they are just indifferent and ready to turn the sneakers in. I don't know, but that was the worst Tennessee's looked all year in a very good year for Tennessee basketball. So does that translate over? I don't think so. I mean, I love the Hubbard kid. I mean, that kid's an NBA player, and he's probably the best player on the floor. But something tells me Tom Izzo likes this team after a very tough end of 2023 in November and December. I mean, they looked up and they were barely 500. And then they started finding themselves and playing a lot better. I actually think this Michigan State team has a chance to go on a little bit of a run.
And Izzo has always thrived when he's not a good seed. I remember when Florida was a 2 seed down in Tampa. This is probably 15 years ago, but Michigan State was a 10 seed, beat 7 seed Temple to play 2 seed Florida. Oh, and in Tampa, by the way, and they beat the brakes off us by like 20 and change. However, check this stat out. Mississippi State has played 9 games at neutral courts this year. 8-1 straight up, 9-0 against the spread, and a 15-point win over Arizona State, a 12-point win over Wazoo, a 9-point win over Northwestern, beat Tulane by 30, beat North Texas by 18, beat Rutgers by 10. Is that all double-digit wins except for Northwestern? Okay, and then they beat LSU by 10, Tennessee by 17. Wow, they've won 8 games on neutral courts by 9 or more. Tennessee's an NCAA tournament team. Wazoo, Northwestern, not North. I think North Texas is in the NIT. But anyhow, I'm going with Mississippi State. Are you? I don't. Did you commit to a bet on Sparty, or are you just saying you think?
No, I like Sparty, but there are so many games to be vested in that I like so much more that a coin flip on either MSU, green or maroon. This one in my bracket, if we're going to talk bracket picks, I've got Michigan State, but I will not be vested in this one.
I am. I'm going with Mississippi State. Sparty is 3-10 in 13 games against teams that made the NCAA tournament field, and they have not beaten a team that made the NCAA tournament field outside of the state of Michigan. And their last 7 games are 2-5 straight up, 3-4 ATS, and Mississippi State 5-9 against teams that made the field. All righty, let's move on. So let's see. Sticking with Thursday, we've got St. Peter's and Tennessee. Looks like a late night game. This one's also in Charlotte. Open 18.5. Bet Online has the Vols at 21 total of 130. I will say this about the Vols. They do have fresh legs.
Yeah, they do. They played one game in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, they've got very fresh legs.
Yeah.
21's too many, entirely too many. It's one of those things that screams at you, Brian, when you look at the numbers as much as you and I do. If the total's 130, giving up 21 is that's harsh. I mean, that might as well be 31 with an over under in a game they expect to be in the mid 60s for each side. So, and I mean, you're talking about a whole lot of the guts of a St. Peter's team. Didn't they bounce Kentucky last year?
Oh, that was several years ago.
Several years ago.
Yeah, and I don't know if they got many of those guys, if any.
No, not from that, not from.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about an expectation and the program's, I don't know, their internal belief that they're not just your normal 15 seed happy to be there. So their bar is a little higher, and I mean, there'll be a whole bunch of orange in the crowd. I mean, Charlotte's not that far from Knoxville. But 21 on a total of 130 is a bunch of points for all you got to do is win. All you got to do is win.
Yeah, this is a 100% pass for me. I'll just mention the unders cashed in 4 straight for Tennessee and is on a 7-1 run. We'll talk more about how far you've got Tennessee going in the bracket here in a little bit. Okay, so Thursday at 7:10 p.m. Eastern. So the first game of the evening session in Pittsburgh. BetOnline has Kentucky minus 13.5 versus Oakland. And the total is 163.5. Again, Kentucky's got fresh legs.
You're going to use that joke as many times as you can, aren't you?
Auburn and Florida don't have fresh legs.
No, they don't. No, they don't. They used all their juice getting to Sunday in Nashville. I love this Kentucky team. When we talked last week, I was backing them to win the league, to win the SEC tournament. I've been bullish on them to make a long run in this thing because they've got 4 NBA dudes who handle the basketball. I mean, Reeves, who's got a better 3 perimeter attack than Dillingham, Shepard, and Reeves? I don't think anybody in America does. But
no,
I don't know how, why, or even what has created the complete allergy and indifference to defense that every Wildcat wearing a jersey has now assumed. I mean, dear Lord, I mean, they can't guard a parked car.
No, and this is what they've done the last, because they had a couple of games where they played good defense.
They were tenacious, and I was at the game in Auburn.
And at Tennessee, they played good defense.
But they still gave up 81.
Here's what they have given up in the last 6. 97, 81, 77, 102, 89, and 95. The over is on a 5-1 run for Kentucky to improve to 23-9 overall. Oakland over 2013-1 overall. Oakland has a player that some SEC fans might recognize, Rocket Watts, formerly at Sparty and Mississippi State. To me, this is over.
I agree.
163.5 at BetOnline. That's my play. Are you going to lay the 13.5 on Kentucky as well?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
The a lot of these for a whole lot of the Oakland kids, this is their Super Bowl. It's one of the same reasons uh, I'm I don't think Tennessee covers 21. Do I think they win? Of course. But uh, these kids getting there one moment in the sun and playing their tails off in front of CBS and Jim Nance and Grant Hill and all the rest and onions and Rafferty and everything and all the pomp and circumstance that goes with it. I mean, it makes for a whole lot of thrilling theater. But no, I'm not the way Kentucky guards. Hell no, I'm not giving up 13.
No. All right. So we both like over 163.5. All right. Same venue, Pittsburgh. We have South Carolina and Oregon. This is going to be the second game of the afternoon session, roughly 4 p.m. Eastern, or 30 minutes after Akron and Creighton. I read that Dana Altman has never lost a first-round game at Oregon. South Carolina's first trip to the tournament since 2017, but they made a run to the Final Four. Unfortunately for me, I was at MSG in NYC, and Florida blew a 7-point lead to Sendarius Thornwell and company and lost that game. And right now, Bet Online has the Gamecocks as a 1-point favorite with minus 115 juice on South Carolina, so minus 105 if you like Oregon +1. The total is 133. So I've been kind of going back and forth on this game. I initially liked South Carolina, but then as I looked into Oregon a little bit more, they've had some health issues, and they're finally fully healthy right now. And their big man last week, I think he missed one shot from the field the whole tournament.
Right.
So now I'm thinking I'm off the game.
I'm on the Ducks. I'm on the Ducks. I think the Ducks. I think the wrong team's favored. I think you probably should get on it now because by the time the ball is tipped Thursday afternoon, I think that line's going to be either even. I get on the money line now and take it at plus or even money. But I think Oregon will probably be favored by the time the ball is tipped. The South Carolina has overachieved, and they've been a great story, but nobody this hits the reset button. The best player on the floor is going to be the Oregon big man, and I don't know if South Carolina is formidable on the perimeter, but they are one of the reasons that Auburn played them twice and beat them by a combined 71 points is Janai Broome completely pistol whipped every interior South Carolina Gamecock since George Rogers was carrying the football there. So the Oregon big man is going to have his way, and I think the Ducks are in a position to win this one and get out of the not only to get to the second weekend.
I think that Michi is going to have to be special, and Colin Murray Boyles is also going to have a big time game. And I believe Miles Studi is going to play. Yeah, he's been upgraded to probable, so that's good for the Gamecocks. But yeah, their backcourt has got to play great if they're going to get this one. It's a pass for me, and Jay likes the Ducks. All right, so we move ahead, and I believe that. Oh wait, do we have one? Let's see. Now that wraps it up for Thursday's games out of the SEC. So we move ahead to Friday, and no SEC teams are at Barclays in Brooklyn. We have Florida is going to play the second game of the afternoon session in Indianapolis. And DraftKings, now we don't know they play Boise State or Colorado. DraftKings has already got lines up for both potential matchups. You can bet them now. If whichever matchup does not come to fruition, it just cancels, becomes a no play. And Florida, only a 1-point favorite to Colorado, a 3-point favorite to Boise State. What do you think, Jay, on Florida playing 4 games in 4 days and losing Micah Handlockton, who led Florida in offensive rebounds, was second on the team in rebounds, second in block shots, and probably the best screen setter out high for Zion Pullen and Walter Clayton Jr. off the dribble. Now, I still think we have 3 other quality bigs, but now if one of them gets in foul trouble, one of them sprains an ankle, like Florida's room for error just got a lot smaller. Where are you on the 4 games in 4 days and the injury?
Well, I am 4 games in 4 days. I mean, these kids are young. They're athletic. They are elite athletes. I will say this, that the SEC championship game changed when Micah got hurt. And I mean, you could just tell the demeanor of the Florida basketball team completely changed. It was a horrific injury. It was hard to watch. Auburn had a great run in the tournament, but I hated that the dominoes started falling after he broke his leg. So that said, I think Florida won. I'm curious about your answer to this, because I know you and I have made a whole lot of money on Boise State in the last 6 weeks. Would you rather see, as a Florida fan, Colorado or Boise State?
It's a great question. And I don't really know. Colorado's has gotten pretty hot here lately, and they do have some high-end talent, Cody Williams, Tristan Da Silva, but so does Boise. And Boise, they've never won a tournament game ever, 0-9. Now they've and actually this is their 4th year in a row in the tournament. Did you see the reaction of the team when they got sent to Dayton? Did you see that video clip by chance?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, you know what?
Leon Rice was, but then a couple of players started clapping, so he was like, "Okay, so I'll clap."
I mean, we're almost into LSU football territory with the Gators, right? You got to go over.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. We do have that total. It looks like it's 156.5 for Boise. So Boise's totals have been really weird. If they're going against a grinder type team, they'll play defense and have a grinder.
They're not afraid to play 94-91 or 57-54.
Yes, 100%. Boise will play whatever way you want. So, I just like the Gators in both games. So I really don't think I'm going to mess with the total. That's where I'm at. On that.
Well, and we've heard for decades now that you got to have great guard play to have success in March, and without question, Florida has got a tremendous backcourt.
And Denzel Aberdeen had a breakout game, but Riley Kugel, who I believe he had a big game against Auburn in Gainesville, didn't he? I want to say he had like 20 points. He got 2 DNPs in a row, which I really don't understand. But
now, Denzel Aberdeen, is that Katniss Aberdeen's younger brother?
Not sure, but he looked like Michael Jordan's son in the A&M game as he went off. I mean, he had a breakout game, and it was awesome to watch. But
Oh, because he was shagging Scottie Pippen's daughter. What's going on here? How did we get so off target here?
hey, did I see a headline that Marcus Jordan and Mama Pippen broke up? I think I might have seen that.
I think so. I think so.
Oh wow!
Well, hey, what do you think about Kate Middleton and the?
back to basketball.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So are we done on the Gators?
Yeah. No, I like the Gators too. I like the Gators against either one, Colorado or Boise State. I think they're too tough, and they're and this is important. I think. And it's one of the reasons why I like almost all of the SEC teams to advance, with the exception of maybe Mississippi State. They have been through the last 3 months of almost every game, with the exception of maybe Missouri. I mean, Georgia is a fight in this league. So, I mean, every game has been just a backyard street brawl.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Friday in Memphis, FedEx Forum, it will be the first game of the evening session around 6:50 p.m. Eastern. Texas A&M and Nebraska. BetOnline is currently showing Nebraska -1 with a total of 147.5. So when I woke up Monday morning, this total was 145, and I could not believe it. And I got all over it, and it has moved 2.5 points. And I'm glad I got it at 145, but I'll still recommend it at 147.5. So the over's on a 17-5 run for Nebraska, and is 22-8 in its last 30 games. But one of those unders had 149 combined, so could be 23-7 to the over. The over's hot for A&M too, hitting in 5 straight, and their last 3 games produced combined scores of 185, 184, and 151. And the over's 11-2 for the Aggies in their last 13. Nebraska's last 3 combined scores: 185, 159, and 155. And when Nebraska's had a total of 146.5 or fewer, actually that doesn't matter now because it went higher than that. So forget that stat. And I lead A&M on the side, like Boise. Nebraska's never won a tournament game. The floor is yours. I'm not going to bother our listeners while I hit the tissue. I shall return very briefly.
Here are 2 things. One, I love your stats and your numbers about the total, and you have convinced me, even at 147.5, that I will tell my subscribers at Jay's Plays, which is our afternoon email with gambling picks on all the daily sporting events that comes through the timefreepress.com. I'm 100%. I completely agree with the over. But I actually really like the Aggies in this spot too, for a multitude of reasons. One, Nebraska was a tournament team because of how great they were at home. And on the road, they are a different kettle of fish. And you got to look, when you get to the bracket, what translates to success on neutral courts. 1, defense travels. 2, for Texas A&M, they are one of the 5 or 6 best offensive rebounding teams in the country. And that is effort and ability to go get offensive boards. And that translates whether you're playing in College Station, Lincoln, or Memphis. And I think, one, I greatly like the over, but I also really like the Aggies in this spot with a Nebraska team that is really just trying to lay the seeds for some program foundation, if you will.
Hey, and let's give some credit to this A&M team. Ezra Mannion beats them at the buzzer at Vandy. Then they go to Bama, they get run out of the gym by 25. Then they lose at home to Arkansas as a 12-point favorite. Then they get beat by 35 at Tennessee. Then at home in South Carolina felt like a must game. They lose at home by 2. Then they go to Georgia. I mean, we're thinking, I think we both said they're probably dead. Like, they weren't even
Right.
in, like, Lenardi's next 4 out, I think, on that Friday show we did, whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago. But then they beat Mississippi State by 6 at home. They go to Ole Miss and win by 26. They beat Ole Miss by 9. And kudos to both of us. We recommended that one on the Aggies during the tournament. And then they just shot the lights out against Kentucky. And they had like an 18-point lead on Florida. And Florida, thanks to my guy Aberdeen, had a great comeback. But A&M worked itself back into the tournament. And now I think they're going to the round of 32. So credit to them. I will be on A&M for a little bit, but my bigger play is on the over. I missed a lot of your analysis. So, you're on A&M and the over, right?
Yeah, I agree on both counts. And there's something to be said, and it's one of the reasons I like Oregon in the first round against South Carolina. These teams that have been in tournament mode for now like 10 days,
right,
and playing with their back against the wall, there's value in that. They have been feeling this pressure now since last Thursday, and they're now, I mean, they're ready for the fight.
Yes. All right. So we both like A&M and the over against Nebraska ball. Again, 6:50 p.m. Eastern in Memphis Friday night. Okay. Auburn against Yale, second game of the afternoon session, roughly 4:15 p.m. Oh, and y'all got sent to Spokane. Another FU from the
the committee went, okay, Auburn won the SEC tournament. Hey, Bruce Pearl, right here, buddy, right here is what is the committee just did that to all the way. And you know what else? And maybe they don't like Tommy Tuberville as a senator. I don't know, but there are 4 basketball teams from the state of Alabama in the NCAA tournament: Samford, UAB, Auburn, and Alabama. And they all got sent to the Pacific Northwest.
wow.
Yeah, that makes it real convenient for travel. I mean, there's a real chance Auburn and UAB could play in Spokane at like 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night.
Wow. I think they will. And San Diego State, grossly over seeded. They finished 5th in the Mountain West, and they're a 5 seed. Like, what? So are you going to lay the points with Auburn?
Yeah.
Figured.
It's always a scary prop, and you may want to monitor in-game wagering not to get overly cliched here. I'm certain Yale plays a smart brand of basketball. I mean, they're Ivy Leaguers, for God's sakes. But Auburn is built for this. Auburn is and you want to talk about another just bleep you to Bruce Pearl? If Auburn gets out of Spokane, they're going to see UConn in the round of 16 in Boston.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's a neutral site.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a neutral site.
Uh-huh. Now, I will mention Yale led by 1 at Fog Allen Fieldhouse at halftime on December 22nd. They ended up losing 75-60 to Kansas, but covered by the hook as a 15.5-point dog. They went to Gonzaga and lost by 15 as an 11-point dog. So those were the 2 like power conference teams they played.
What's the number on Auburn?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that. All right, BetOnline's got Auburn at 13, but other spots have 12 and a hook.
I would 100% lay that.
All right.
And here's one of the big reasons. Not unlike when Spurrier was at his apex in Gainesville, when he brought in the second and third team, they still ran the same offense. They still blew you out. I mean, Auburn's second and almost third team is they're probably starting for Yale.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Let's move on because we're getting a little low on time. All right, so I will say this about, I mean, Alabama is such a fade team right now, but I will say this. I think they got a pretty good draw,
Of
which is
course they
another
did.
another
Well,
one of these.
you know Alabama's AD Greg Byrne was on the selection committee.
Oh, shocker. I,
Yeah, yeah. Who knew that Alabama was going to get a break from the SEC or the NCAA?
I mean, but I mean, I want to fade this team, but I was looking at Charleston's resume the other day, and it's not all that
No,
impressive.
it's not that impressive. Alabama, and you know what? You know how the algorithms and the lines makers go. They're begging people not to fade Alabama at this point. And here's the other part of this. Alabama's going to come to this with one of the 3 to 5 best point guards in America. And he's going to have the ball in his hands, and he's going to dictate not only the flow, but the outcome of a lot of these games. I mean, Alabama has been so untrustworthy away from Coleman Coliseum, but Mark Sears, you talk about point guards who, if you look big picture on guys who could be, who was the UConn point guard 10 years ago?
Kimba
Kemba
or
Walker.
Shabazz Napier or
Yeah,
Shabazz.
no. If you want to talk about a Kemba Walker type of tournament, Mark Sears could do that. Mark
Yes.
Sears could put up 30 a night, and next thing you know, we're talking about the second Sunday of the tournament is Alabama Final Four worthy. I'm not picking them. I'm not. But I certainly like them to blow Charleston out, and because Mark Sears is him. I mean, he can play.
Yeah. And I like that thought process. We had 88 Danny Manning in the Miracles, Carmelo in 03,
Right.
Kimba. I mean, Steph did his best to get to the Elite Eight, loses by 1 to Kansas, the eventual national champ. You can have that dude who can carry you, and maybe he can be one of the. I mean, I can't like. I was just like the way we were just beating Alabama down. I'm like, I'm picking against them the first round, but and look, I mean, I think they should probably beat St. Mary's or Grand Canyon, whoever advances. And then they're probably looking at Carolina. Oh, and by the way, we got a little more time. My Beham show got pushed back.
All right. Because here's the other thing that is really, really, really important, and it allowed Auburn a handful of years ago to get the Final Four. When your point guard shoots 85+% from the foul line, you win games late. Because Jared Harper did it for Auburn and pulled them away, and Sears does that for Alabama because he's going to handle the basketball. You're not going to turn him over, and then eventually you're going to foul him. These tournament games are called closer. It's one of the reasons why I really think we need to fade the Big 12, because they just play a physical brand of basketball that is not going to be well viewed in the officials' eyes, and you're gonna see a whole lot of people marching to the foul line.
I'd say the same about the Big East, but they only got 3 teams in, right?
Right. Well, and you know what? I'm happy for you, Rick Pitino. You deserve everything you get.
Absolutely. I mean, the teams that should have been in instead of Virginia, maybe Pitt, maybe
yes. BC, maybe,
or South Florida, 22-3 in their last 25. 2 of the losses to UAB, and they put it on UCF on the road last night in the NIT.
App State.
They play tonight, don't they?
Yeah.
In the NIT. Okay, so I'm going to go with the over. It's at one. Let's see where Bet Online is now on that. Looks like 173.5. I got 172.5 early in the week. So overs 10-1 in Alabama's the last 11. Those 10 overs, listen to these combined scores: 190, 180, 192, 191, 212, 191, 175, 201, 180, 166 would not have gone
Did you say
over.
212 in there?
I did.
All right. Hey, let me ask you this. If Nate Oates and Kim Mulkey had a baby, would that be the most punchable child in the history of children?
We got LSU and Bama fans listening to the show. I'm going to say no comment.
Okay.
But I like it.
I don't care. I mean,
I know you don't. I know you don't. I hear you.
Dear Lord. I mean, I've been fired from radio shows before. I mean, what difference does it make?
Right. So, no, I will say this about Charleston, though. They are ranked 32nd in the country in scoring. They average 81 points per game. They're 44th in pace. So, I think we're going to get another over here.
Oh, yeah. This one may be hitting that $2 bill, that 200-point mark too. And I will also say this: the cuisine in Charleston way better than the cuisine in Tuscaloosa.
I shall agree.
Are you sure? Yeah, I don't want you to step on anybody's toes. I don't want you to step out there and be offensive there, Brian.
Was I being away Switzerland there a minute ago?
Well, I have no recollection of that, Senator.
I did not. I did not inhale. By the way,
yes, I did not have sex with that woman.
Another apology on my sinuses to the audience. Okay,
hey,
so
it's not your problem.
my man. So, all right. Should we talk bracket, or should we go non-SEC favorite picks? Because I definitely want to talk about Nevada at some point, or we can just talk.
Well, hey, you talk about Nevada, and then I'm going to talk about New Mexico.
Okay. All right. So let's go with Nevada. All right. They're -1. Let me make sure that's what that number is at Bet Online right now. Here we go. Oh, see, Bet Online's very smart. They have it at 1.5. That's okay. So Nevada's got every advantage in this game. They're absolutely on fire. So they had a 7-game winning streak to end the regular season. It was snapped in a good game with Colorado State in the Mountain West tourney, but that just gives them fresh legs. They're 10-2 straight up, 9-3 against the spread in the last 12, including, and no more home games for anybody unless you're in the NIT. Listen to these road wins for Nevada in the last 12 games: at Utah State, at UNLV, at Colorado State, and at Boise State. And this game is in Salt Lake City. I actually went and looked up the elevation in Reno and Salt Lake City, because you hear NBA players talking about the altitude in Salt Lake City. Reno is actually higher above sea level than Salt Lake City. Dayton has to fly west and into altitude. Okay, so the location advantage is definitely Nevada. Nevada's played 12 games against teams in the field. They're 6-6, and they also they're 2-0 against quad 2 teams, so 8-6. And their only bad loss was at Wyoming, and they gave up a big lead late in that game. Dayton has struggled down the stretch, 5-4 straight up, 3-6 against the spread, not against great competition. And one of those games I watched on a Friday night, they got very lucky to force overtime at home to VCU, and they won in overtime in a game they trailed by 17 at 1 point. And they only played 6 teams that made the field, and they're 3-3. Love Nevada, and I'll take a step further. They're one of my double-digit seeds I've got in the Sweet 16. My other is McNeese State. And I made a prop bet at 28-1 for Nevada to win the West region. All right, let's hear about New Mexico.
All right. Well, one, you mentioned McNeese State, and I think they deserve mention because uh, Will Wade became one of my buddies when he was here in Chattanooga before he went to LSU. And not unlike what happened to Bruce Pearl, by comparison, when he got run off at Tennessee, uh, in retrospect, in today's modern wild, wild west that is college sports, Bruce Pearl looks like a altar boy. Will Wade got run at LSU for quote unquote making a strong ass offer to his point guard, but now that's legal. I mean, 2 years later, the NIL has made making strong ass offers part of the recruiting process. It's what ran Nick Saban out of the game, for God's sakes. And Will Wade can coach his whistle off.
Yes.
Do not sleep on McNeese State. Do not sleep on them. But New Mexico, as much disdain as I have for Rick Pitino, New Mexico is coached by his boy
and Richard.
Yes.
And Richard. Rick and Richard.
Yes. Well, Rick and Dick, as I like to call them. But the storyline about what New Mexico has, they've got Jamal Mashburn's boy. They've got Eddie House's like nephew. They've got a former 4-star top 100 recruit who signed with Kentucky. Buckle up for this, Brian. Signed with Kentucky in the 2017 recruiting class.
Ooh,
He's
buddy.
25 years old. That's a grown dude.
Yeah, and they just took my money against Boise State last Friday night. They're playing really good.
Yeah.
They're playing really, really good. But the only thing I feel like everybody on Twitter is talking about New Mexico Elite Eight and Final Four, and I hate when I hear that though.
Yes, no, I hate it too, and it was one of the things. It was they jumped off the bracket to me on Monday, and I wrote it at the 5 at 10, my morning column at timesfreepress.com. But you're right. Everything now swells to where every trendy upset pick. I mean, New Mexico's an 11 seed, and they're now laying 2.5.
Nice job, committee. You bunch of Gilligans.
Yeah. Take that, committee. You bunch of goofballs. Alabama's AD. He just.
Yeah, who was that? Who was that clown they threw on television to talk about Michigan State and just started blurting out inaccuracies galore on national television the other night? It
could have been
who
me.
It was.
It could have been me. But
it wasn't you.
It wasn't me.
It definitely wasn't you. All right, so who you got in your Final Four?
My Final Four, I've got Houston beating Kentucky to get to the Final Four. I've got Tennessee getting to the Final Four.
I think Tennessee Creighton's the best Sweet 16 game if it comes to fruition.
Well, no, Auburn UConn is the best Sweet 16.
Oh, you are correct. My apologies. That's the second one then.
I've got Auburn in the Final Four, and I've got Arizona in the Final Four.
Oh. I got Nevada beating Arizona.
That's why they hand out multiple brackets to multiple people, my man.
This is true. So I've got Kentucky and Creighton in the Final Four. I've got Creighton beating Kentucky. I have, so many of these teams have warts, but I got Carolina getting there. UConn beating them. UConn beating Creighton to win it. Tyler Kolek's health has a lot to do with that South region. If he's 100% without Handlockton, but he's been out 6 games. He hasn't played since February 28th. Shaka Smart's comments yesterday made me really question whether he's playing in this first game. So even if he does play, Is he 90%? Is he 80%? And where is his cardio?
Right. And it was hard for me. I love what Shaka Smart has done at Marquette because they play deep and together as well as anybody this side of Auburn. And that's one of the reasons I really wish Auburn had gotten the seed they deserved as a 3. Because if you could face the 1 on the back end of a 48 to 72 hour window, as deep as Auburn is, that plays directly into their hands. Auburn will not lose on a Saturday or Sunday through the rest of the tournament. Well, the Final Four is on a Saturday. They will not lose on the back end of a weekend.
Let me put this to you, and I think you had. Did you have Sparty, or were you a pass on Mississippi State?
I like Michigan State. I think Izzo.
That's right. Let's just say if Mississippi State advances to play Carolina, if A&M advances to play Houston, was it this year or last year that A&M played Houston really tough in a neutral game earlier in the year? I can look that up. But let's say A&M and Mississippi State are catching, 10 or 11 to North Carolina and Houston. Any thoughts?
UConn and Houston. North Carolina and Houston. I like both of them catching double digits, and I especially like A&M because they're athletically. I didn't necessarily think A&M was going to be able to match up athletically with Kentucky, and they did in the tournament. And they're going to be able to. Yeah, Houston can guard their sneakers off, but A&M they miss a bunch of shots, but they go get those missed shots. And I mean, here's the other part about Carolina. I don't know if they got somebody who can check Hubbard.
Right. There might not be many teams in America that got anybody who can check him. So I was correct. A&M played Houston in Houston, not on campus. They played them at Toyota Center where the Rockets play. This game was on December 16th, and Houston led by 15 at halftime, but A&M rallied, tied it with 124 left. Houston won 70-66, but A&M got the cash as a 7-point dog. All right, we got to wrap this thing up here in the next 90 seconds. Any other thoughts on any teams? Tell them about Jay's plays, etc.
I already did when you were getting some of your snot rockets done. But timesfreepress.com, you can find me there. You can find me. My Twitter handle is there. I'm certain Brian and I will both be super active throughout Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because this is a glorious, glorious weekend. Many thanks to the good folks at Southeastern 14 and Bet Online and all of those folks. It's been a joy, and we'll hopefully have a whole bunch of SEC teams to talk about, including your Auburn Tigers, this time next week.
Absolutely. I'll be flying to Vegas early Thursday morning, so we'll probably record either Tuesday or Wednesday. We will figure all that out. Apologies for my scratchy voice, my nasal. To hell with CenturyLink, and happy March Madness to everyone.
To hell with the committee.
To hell with the committee, CenturyLink, and Bill Self for lying to get a better seed when Kevin McCullough is not playing. Thanks to Southeastern 14, Blake, and all the guys for editing and Bet Online. And we will talk to you next week. Best of luck with your bets. Over and out.